Do you want to create a game like this? And if your answer is yes, let's get started. First of all, we have to analyze what we have to create in this game. This game is similar to Flappy Bird, but instead of bird, there is a circle. So let's create this game. As you can see, I have created a new project. This is an empty project and the version which I am using is 2018.3. We have to set up few things and import some asset. I'm not a good artist, but I have created some asset for this game. First of all, let's create a folder. I will name the folder asset. These are the assets which I have created. Let's import these assets in our project. Now changing the texture type to sprite 2D. Hit apply. Now we have to convert this texture sheet into individual images. Select sprite mode to multiple and hit on sprite editor. Apply. We will allow Unity to slice this texture sheet. Unity has sliced each sprite correctly. Now hit on apply. Now let's create an empty game object. I will name it player. Inside this game object, I am creating a new 2D sprite game object. I will name this game object player foreground. I will drag and drop this image into the sprite. And before that, let's change the aspect ratio to 480 into 800. Now I am creating a new 2D sprite game object. I will name this as a player background. I will drag and drop this image into the sprite. I will go to the scene view and adjust the location of the sprite. Now go to the game view and let's change the background color to this color. Change the projection mode to orthographics. Circle seems to be a little big. Downscale the circle size. I will change it to 0.6. Let's create a new sprite game object. I will drag and drop the block sprite going back to the scene view. Scale down the Y and now let's add the sorting layer so that the player foreground sprite will come forward and the background sprite will go backward. Let's create three sorting layer. First one is foreground and second one is background and the third one we will name as block. Now aligning the sorting layer, background will go in the back, foreground will come forward and block will be in the middle. Now assigning the foreground sorting layer to our player foreground game object and the background sorting layer to our player background game object. Now let's change the name of the game object to block sprite and assigning the block sorting layer to it. It is a 2D game, but the sorting layer gives the 3D aspect to it. First of all, let's create a folder. I will name this folder script and inside this folder, I will create a new script. I will name this script as a player. Now double click to open this script inside Visual Studio. Inside this player script, we have to create a functionality that if we press the left mouse button or if we click from our phone, the circle will jump. Now let's delete these two packages from our script because we will not use these two packages. Inside the player script, the first thing we have to do is to take the reference of the rigid body. We will create a rigid body variable and inside the start method, we will get the rigid body component. We will do this by using the get component. Now let's add the rigid body to the component on our player game object. Click on add component and search rigid body. Click on it. Drag and drop the player script on this game object. Let's change the collision detection to continuous. This will make the collision more exact and changing the interpolate to interpolate. Now inside the update method, we have to write if the left mouse button is pressed. We will do this by using input.get mouse button down 0. 0 is the left mouse button and 1 is the right mouse button. And if the left mouse button is pressed, we will assign force to the rigid body. Now let's create a vector2 variable. I will name this variable jump force. Write jump force inside this bracket. This line of force will assign jump force to the rigid body. Now let's go to Unity and assign the jump force value. You can write any value here, but after a couple of testing, I think 40 for the X and 150 for the Y is good. Now let's create a method which will clamp the velocity of the rigid body. Let's name this method speed controller and I will call this method just after adding force to the rigid body. Now inside this method, we have to control the velocity of the game object. Now let's create a vector2 variable which will store the current velocity of the game object. We will take the current velocity of the game object inside this variable, and after this we will clamp the x and y value. And now assigning this current velocity vector2 variable to our rigid body velocity. In the start, let's change the gravity scale to 0. And when the button is pressed, the gravity will change to 0.5. Let's try to run this application. Player script is working correctly. Now let's create a new script. This script will control the position of the camera, and I will call it camera controller. Assigning this script to the camera game object, and let's open this script. Inside this script, we have to change the x position of the camera to the x position of the player, and the y position will be same. Let's create a public transform variable. I will name this player transform. This will take the transform of the player, and inside the update we have to change the x position of the camera to the player x position. Y position will be same, and z will be -10. Now let's drag and drop the player transform. Great, now camera is following the player. Now let's add box collider to the block sprite. Now let's drag and drop this to create this a prefab. Now we have to create some obstacle. I will duplicate the block sprite using the Ctrl D. Let's scale it down and position it here. Now just randomly rotate the block sprite and create some obstacle. Now we have to detect collision, so we have to add a collider to it. Let's create a new game object. I will name it dead collider. Assign the box2D collider to it, tweaking the size little bit, and I will offset it to -1.86. Make this collider our trigger collider. Now copy the value of this collider and paste as a new component. Changing the Y position by deleting the minus. Now both of the collider are at the right place. Assign the player tag to this game object and creating a new layer for the player. I will name this layer player and changing the layer to player. Now create a new script for our block prefab. I will name this script block. Assign this script to our block prefab, and let's open this script in editor. We will not use start and update method. Inside the onTrigger enter 2D method. If the game object which is collided with the block has a tag named player, we will display hit by player, and we will end the game. To end the game, we have to create a new script. Let's create a game manager, because manager is the only one who can end the game. Now open the manager script. Let's create a variable named gameOver, and inside the onTrigger method of the block class, we will find the game manager script and set the gameOver bool to true. Now inside the player script, we have to take the reference of the game manager. We will do this by finding the game object of type game manager, and inside the update, if the gameOver variable of the game manager class is true, then we will change the body type to static and return from the update. Let's try to run the application. First of all, we have to create our game object and assign the game manager script to it. Now let's try running the game. When the circle hit the block, game is over. I think the circle is jumping a lot in the y direction. So changing the value to 130. Let's see. The game is working. Let's upscale the size of the circle a little bit. I think it is too small right now. Changing the y value to 150 again. And great. The game is ready. So now let's create some coin system. We will create a diamond in this. Now let's create a new game object and name it diamond prefab. Reset the transform. I will create the 2D sprite child object and drag and drop the diamond sprite to it. Downscale the size of the sprite. Now let's add the collider to it. Changing the Y value of the collider. I will set it to 4. Changing it to trigger. Let's rename this game object to diamond. And now create a new script for this game object. And drag and drop the diamond script to the diamond prefab game object. Now let's open this script. And inside the script, if the player hit the collider, we will give point to the player. So inside the on trigger enter 2D method, first we will check if the collider has the player tag to it, and if that is true, we will give point to the player. So let's create a score canvas now. We will create an empty canvas. Inside the empty canvas, we will create a text. Import the essential script. It will take some time. Hit on close. Changing the anchor point of the text to the right hand side. Changing the dimension a little bit. Changing the color to black. Now rename the canvas to score UI and rename the text to score text. Changing the scale mode to scale with screen size, and I will set the dimension to 480 into 800. Now let's drag and drop the diamond prefab to make it a prefab. Changing the game manager game object to manager. Now we have to create a game object which will instantiate the diamond prefab. I will name it diamond instantiator. Reset the transform. And inside this game object, I will create some more empty game object. I will move this game object randomly in the scene. I will duplicate this game object using Ctrl D and place randomly in the scene. We will create the diamond instantiator script, and that script will take the reference of all the child transform and instantiate the diamond prefab inside the child transform. Now let's open this script in editor. I will first create an array of transform type and I will name it child transform with a capital T, and inside the awake function I will set the child transform array size to its child count. And now we have to start a for loop. For loop will run from 0 to size to the length of the child transform. Inside this for loop, child transform array will take all its child transform position. We will do this by using the method which is transform.getChild. And now we have to create a function which will instantiate diamond prefab at random child position. I will create a new method. I will name it instantiate diamond. But before this, we have to create a public field which will take the diamond prefab. Now let's start a for loop. Loop will start from 0 till the child transform length. And inside this for loop, for the randomness, we will write if random.value is greater than 0.4, then only this line of code will run. And random.value will give a random value from 0 to 1. And this is a nice way to give randomness in your function. And if the random.value is greater than 0.4, then we will instantiate the diamond prefab at that position. We will do this by using the instantiate method. First parameter will be the game object which you want to instantiate, and the second parameter will be the position at which you want to instantiate the game object, and third will be the rotation, which we will use quaternion.identity, means we don't want any rotation. Now let's check if this script is working correctly or not. Drag and drop the diamond instantiator script on diamond instantiator game object. Now drag and drop the diamond prefab in the field. Call the instantiate diamond method in the awake function, changing the start to awake. Now let's run the application. This script is working fine. It is instantiating diamond prefab at random places. Now inside the diamond script, when the player hit the diamond game object, we will destroy this game object and add the score to the player. Now let's create a score UI class which will take care of the score system. And inside the score UI we have to create a int variable. I will name it score. Now creating the TextMex Pro text field, I will name it score text. We don't need the start and update in this class, so we will delete that, and I will create a new method. I will name it increment score. This function will assign the value to the score, and if this method is called, we will simply add the value to the score. And after this we have to create a new method which will update the text on the screen. I will name it update display. We have to create this method. Now let's create the method. And inside this method we will just provide the score value to the TextMex Pro variable. Now let's display the number of diamond collected as well, and for that we have to create a new TextMex Pro field. I will name this diamond text. Now let's create a new method which will increment the diamond variable. But before that we have to create a diamond variable which is of int type, and inside this method we just add value to the diamond variable and call the update display function. We have to display the diamond text as well, so assigning the diamond variable to the TextMex Pro diamond text. And now the script is ready to use. We will drag and drop this script to the score UI game object. Let's duplicate the score text and anchor it to the left. Rename this to diamond text and assign the TextMex Pro text to the script. Now I think the game should work now. Let's play. First of all, we have to call the diamond increment method of the score UI script. From the diamond script, we will do this by using find object of type score UI, calling the method name increment diamond, giving the value to 1, and whenever the player click, we will increment the score. And first of all, we have to take the reference of the score UI class. We will create a variable score UI of the score UI class, and in the start finding the score UI class using find object of type. Now inside the update method, if the left mouse button is pressed, we will increment the score. We will do that by simply calling the script, calling the increment score method, and we will provide the value 1. Now let's start the game and see. Now score is updating as well. Now the functionality of the game is working. Now let's add some visual element to it. We will create an empty canvas. Let's create a TextMex Pro text, and I will write it +1, and whenever the diamond is hit by the player we will show this canvas. I will change the color to orange and changing the canvas render mode to world space. Drag and drop the main camera. Now let's downscale the canvas and place it inside the scene, and changing the name to score point canvas. Changing the text name to score. Now let's create an animation. It is a good practice to create a new folder for the animation. I will name it animation, and I will name the animation to score point. Let's make the animation. Animation will be quite simple. Now let's add the canvas group and changing the alpha value of this. After few tries, the animation will look like this. Make it a little bit faster. Now let's create a new script for this score point canvas, and I will name it score point canvas. Now let's create an empty animation, and let's create a trigger. I will name it play. When the play is trigger, it will go to the score point, and after a few seconds it will go back to the new state. Dragging and dropping the score point canvas script to the game object. Now inside this we just have to create one function. First of all, we take the reference of the animator. We will do this by using get component. We will take the reference of the animator, not the animation. We will delete the packages which we will not use. Now let's create the method. I will name it diamond head, and inside the parameter we will create a vector to position and display this canvas at that position. So inside the diamond head method we will just change the game object position to the vector to position, and we will trigger the animation. And inside the diamond script, when the diamond is hit, we will just play that animation at the collision.transform.position. Now let's try to run the application. Congratulations, game is working now. I will upload this project on GitHub. You can download it from there. And as English is not my first language, I am trying really hard to explain everything correctly. And if you want to appreciate my effort, you can hit the like button. That will appreciate me to create more content like this. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I will see you in next video.